There is no greater assurance in life than knowing that God has a plan for you. Before you took your first breath, before your name was ever spoken by man, heaven had already declared your purpose. You are not here by accident. Your life is the product of divine intention. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life lived outside of purpose. Many people drift through life, trying to find meaning in success, money, and relationships, only to end up feeling empty. But hear this, your purpose was established before you were even formed. God told Jeremiah, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." That means before your parents met, before your name was recorded, God already had a destiny prepared for you. But purpose is not automatic. It requires alignment. God speaks, but do you listen? God directs, but do you follow? Many people struggle with uncertainty because they want God to bless their plans instead of surrendering to His. You cannot expect divine direction while walking in disobedience. His word is the lamp to your feet, His Spirit is the compass, and faith is the vehicle that moves you forward. Before you were ever born, before you took your first breath, and before your name was ever spoken by man, God had already designed a plan for your life. You are not here by accident, nor are you the product of mere chance. You were intentionally created, divinely orchestrated, and placed on this earth with a specific purpose in mind. Nothing about your existence is random. The world may define you by circumstances, but heaven defines you by destiny. God does not make mistakes. Everything He creates has a purpose. A seed carries within it the blueprint for a mighty tree. A bird is born with the instinct to fly. The sun was placed in the sky to give light and warmth. Every creation has a reason for its existence, and you are no different. When God spoke to the prophet Jeremiah, He declared, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you and ordained you a prophet to the nation." This means that even before Jeremiah's mother knew she was pregnant, heaven had already assigned him a mission. This same principle applies to you. Your birth was not a mistake. Your life is not an accident. Your existence is part of a divine strategy. God knew the generation you were meant to impact. He knew the gifts He placed inside of you. He knew the struggles you would face and the victories you would achieve. Nothing about your journey is surprising to God. The things you discover about yourself along the way are merely the unfolding of what was already written before time began. One of the greatest tragedies in life is not death, but a life lived without purpose. Many people walk through life searching for meaning, trying to create their own plans, unaware that God already mapped out their destiny. They chase after success, wealth, recognition, and approval, hoping to find fulfillment, yet they still feel empty. Why? Because true fulfillment is only found in discovering and walking in the purpose that God ordained before time. When you walk outside of divine purpose, life becomes a cycle of frustration, disappointment, and confusion. But when you step into the assignment God designed for you, you move with clarity, confidence. Understanding that God's plan precedes your existence also means that your value is not determined by your circumstances. Some people believe that because they were born into poverty, dysfunction, or brokenness, their lives have no meaning. But God does not define you by where you start. Moses was born into a time of genocide and was abandoned in a river. Yet he was called to be a deliverer. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. Yet he was destined to be a ruler. Esther was an orphan, but God positioned her to be a queen who would save a nation. Your beginning does not dictate your destiny. God's plan for your life existed before your past, before your failures, and before your struggles. When you realize that God's plan precedes your existence, you stop living by fear and start walking by faith. You no longer question if you belong. You no longer wonder if your life matters. You understand that heaven already approved you, anointed you, and assigned you. Every detail of your life is in God's hands. Even the delays, the detours, and the difficulties serve a purpose in His greater plan. The enemy cannot cancel what God has already ordained. No opposition can erase what was written before time. The only thing that can stop you from fulfilling your destiny is your own unwillingness to follow His plan. You were created on purpose for a purpose. God knew you before you knew yourself. He designed your steps before you took your first one. Your life is not a mistake. It is a masterpiece in the making. Divine guidance is always available, but it is not automatic. God is always speaking, but the question is, are we listening? His direction is clear, but are we aligned with His will? Many people desire God's guidance, yet they struggle to hear Him because they are not in proper alignment with His voice, His word, and His principles. Alignment is the key to receiving divine direction. And without it, we risk wandering aimlessly, making decisions based on emotions, human wisdom, or external influences, rather than God's perfect plan. Alignment with God begins with a surrendered heart. When we acknowledge that His ways are higher than ours, we position ourselves to receive His leading. Too often, people seek God's guidance while still holding on to their own agendas. They pray for direction, yet they have already decided in their hearts what they want to do. God does not bless plans that are birthed out of human will. He blesses those that align with His divine purpose. A heart that is yielded to God does not demand its own way, but seeks His will above all else. Surrender is not a one-time act. It is a lifestyle of continually placing God's plans above our own desires. Hearing from God also requires a relationship, not just a request. Many treat God like an emergency hotline, only calling on Him when trouble arises, then ignoring Him when life seems fine. But divine direction is not a one-time consultation. It is a continuous journey. A person who is aligned with God does not just seek Him for answers, they seek Him for intimacy. They prioritize His presence, spend time in prayer, meditate on His voice, and cultivate an awareness of His voice. When you are close to God, His guidance becomes clear. You do not have to beg for direction. It flows naturally because your spirit is in tune with Him. Another critical aspect of alignment is obedience. God will not reveal the next step if we refuse to obey the last instruction. Many people struggle with confusion, not because God is silent, but because they have ignored what He already told them to do. When God speaks, He expects action. If He tells you to move but you stay still, you forfeit the next level of revelation. If He tells you to let go of something but you hold on, you hinder His ability to bring you into something greater. Partial obedience is still disobedience. A life that is aligned with God moves at His command, trusting that His ways are perfect even when they do not make sense. Divine alignment also requires faith. Often God's direction does not come with all the details. He may show you the next step, but not the full picture. This is where many people struggle because they want certainty before they move. But God does not operate according to human logic. He requires trust. Abraham was called to leave his homeland and go to a place that God would show him. He was not given a roadmap, just an instruction to go. His obedience positioned him to become the father of nations. When you align with God, you must trust that His plan is better than your understanding. Misalignment with God's will leads to frustration and unnecessary struggle. When people ignore divine direction and follow their own desires, they often find themselves in situations that could have been avoided. They enter relationships God never ordained, pursue careers He never called them to, make choices that lead to heartache and regret. Then they wonder why things are not working. The reality is that outside of divine alignment, life becomes difficult and confusing. But when you align with God, His grace covers you, His favor surrounds you, and His wisdom directs your steps. Alignment is the key to divine guidance. When your heart is surrendered, your relationship is strong, your obedience is unwavering, and your faith is intact, you will never struggle to hear God's voice. His direction will become clear, and your steps will be ordered according to His perfect plan. Challenges are not signs of failure, nor are they indications that God has abandoned you. Instead, they are essential parts of the process that prepares you for the destiny God has designed for your life. Every great purpose comes with great trials. Every significant calling is accompanied by seasons of testing. The struggles you face are not meant to destroy you, but to develop you. They refine your character, strengthen your faith, and position you for the greatness that lies ahead. Many people assume that because they are facing difficulties, they must be outside of God's will. But this is far from the truth. Some of the greatest figures in history endured hardship not because they were doing something wrong, but because they were walking in divine purpose. Joseph had a dream of greatness, yet he was thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned before he saw the fulfillment of his vision. David was anointed king as a young shepherd, but he spent years running for his life before he ever sat on the throne. Even Jesus, the Son of God, endured rejection, suffering, and betrayal on his way to fulfilling his mission. Challenges are not an indication of God's absence. They are proof that He is working on something greater in your life. God uses difficulties to shape and prepare you. Without adversity, there is no growth. A diamond is formed under pressure, gold is purified in fire, and a seed must be buried before it can grow into a mighty tree. Likewise, your challenges are preparing you for the weight of the assignment ahead. If you desire to be a leader, you must first learn how to handle opposition. If you want to be entrusted with greater responsibilities, you must first prove faithful in seasons of difficulty. Every hardship is a training ground for what is to come. Challenges also teach dependence on God. When everything is easy, it is tempting to rely on our own strength and understanding, but difficulties remind us that we need God's wisdom, guidance, and strength to move forward. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, they had to trust God daily for manna. When Paul faced trials, he learned that God's grace was sufficient. When you go through challenges, you develop a deeper level of faith and reliance on God. It is in the moments of struggle that you see His power move in ways you never expected. Another important aspect of challenges is that they reveal what is in you. A person's true character is not exposed in comfort, but in adversity. How you respond to difficulty determines whether you are ready for the next level. Do you complain or do you trust? Do you give up or do you press forward? When challenges come, they bring to the surface both strengths and weaknesses. They reveal areas that need growth and teach valuable lessons that will be essential for the future. Challenges are also indicators that you are making progress. No one attacks a person who is not a threat. When you begin to walk in your purpose, opposition will arise. The enemy does not fight people who are stagnant. He fights those who are advancing. If you are facing resistance, it is because there is something valuable inside of you. Do not allow obstacles to discourage you. Instead, recognize them as confirmation that you are on the right path. God never allows challenges without a purpose. Every difficulty you face is part of a divine process leading to your destiny. When you embrace this truth, you stop seeing challenges as setbacks and start seeing them as stepping stones. You realize that nothing is wasted. Every struggle is working together for your good. The very things meant to break you will build you. The trials designed to stop you will strengthen you. When you trust God through the process, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and fully prepared for the future He has ordained for you. Your future is not uncertain when it is placed in God's hands. The world may be filled with unpredictability, but God operates outside of time, knowing the end from the beginning. He is not figuring things out as life unfolds. He has already established the path before you. When you trust Him, you are not subject to the instability of circumstances, human opinions, or even your own mistakes. Your future is secured because it is governed by the one who holds all power, wisdom, and authority. God's plans for your life are not temporary or fragile. They are eternal, unshakable, and designed with divine precision. He has already written the story of your life, and every chapter is filled with His purpose. Even when you cannot see the full picture, He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning opportunities, and preparing you for what is ahead. There is no accident in God's design. The people you meet, the places you go, and even the challenges you face all play a role in shaping your destiny. One of the greatest assurances of a secured future is the fact that God's promises never fail. His word declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This means that no matter what circumstances arise, His plan remains intact. Even when life takes unexpected turns, when doors close or when trials come, His promises are still at work. What looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater. God is never caught off guard. He has already made provision for every step you will take. Placing your future in God's hands requires trust. Many people live in anxiety, trying to control every detail of their lives, fearing what is to come. But fear is a sign of misplaced dependence. When you understand that God is the architect of your destiny, you no longer have to live in worry. You do not need to manipulate circumstances or force outcomes. The same God who created the heavens and the earth is the same God who is guiding your life. He knows the right doors to open, the right connections to make, and the right timing for everything. Even your mistakes cannot cancel God's plans. Many people believe that if they fail, they have forfeited their destiny. But God's grace is greater than human error. He is a God of restoration, redemption, and new beginnings. Look at the story of Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times, yet he was still chosen to lead the early church. Look at Jonah. He ran from his calling, yet God redirected him back to his purpose. Your failures do not disqualify you. When your life is surrendered to God, He takes even your missteps and weaves them into His perfect plan. The enemy cannot steal what God has secured. When you are in divine alignment, no attack, no opposition, and no scheme can overthrow what God has declared over your life. The enemy may try to delay you, distract you, or discourage you, but he cannot derail you. What God has spoken will come to pass. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, because your future is protected by divine hands. God does not operate in confusion or uncertainty. He's not making last-minute adjustments to your destiny. He has already seen the future, and He has already prepared the way. As you walk through life, remember that you are not wandering aimlessly. God is guiding you with divine precision. His plans for you were set in place long before you were born, and every step you take is leading you toward His greater purpose. Even when the path seems unclear, even when obstacles arise, and even when you do not understand the process, trust that He is working all things together for your good. Do not let fear, doubt, or setback shake your confidence. What God has planned for you cannot be undone by man, circumstances, or even your own mistakes. When you align yourself with His will, when you remain obedient and faithful, He will open doors that no one can shut. He will take you beyond what you ever imagined and position you in places you never expected. Your future is not uncertain. It is secured in the hands of the one who created you. So walk boldly, trust completely, and move forward with the assurance that God is leading you into a destiny greater than you could ever plan for yourself. The best is yet to come. Amen.